Hi everybody. Just to explain with this next video, just for all of those who might not be interested in anything other than the actual building part of Mistress's journey, the next episode, it's a sit-down podcast talk with, as I always say, the affable Ross. We had a great time. We talked about a lot of things. I'm actually going to break this down into two parts because one does deal with Ross's very expert advice regarding all things GRP, in other words, fiberglassing, or as Ross says, composites. And because this went for way much more than both Ross and I thought it was going to, I'm going to release another one, which will just be a whole range of different topics, which I got a lot out of talking to Ross. So if you're not interested in a sit-down podcast, this episode's not for you. Rather than be sort of annoyed about that, I'd just suggest don't watch. But if you are interested in something a little bit different, it's a sit-down talk with a lot of great humour. And so for those who are interested, sit down, get yourself a coffee, a tea, water, a beer, or whatever is you fancy, and enjoy. Calling Rossco. Oh, Mr. Ross, Mr. Boardman, Mr. Life on the Hulls, my goodness, here we are. I can see you with all your multicoloured stickers to remind you 1,006 things to do for the next week. We're recording now, just so you know.
No worries.
We're live now.
Better behave then.
No, don't behave. Don't behave. Be yourself. You should appear there shortly. Fingers crossed. There we go.
There I am. You've done well to learn all of this stuff as well as build your boat.
How many things do we have to learn just doing all of this media, video making, editing? Your computer crashes. You have to get a new one. Now you have to start again. I mean, my goodness, man. I'm sort of. In a sense, I wish it wasn't a part of it.
Oh, me too. Don't you worry. It just does my head in.
I'm absolutely privileged to be speaking to you, mate. And I want to say as well, for those who are going to be watching this in the future ahead, we've never spoken before, have we? No,
never. We watch each other's channels and comment quite regularly, and that's right. You know, that's good enough for me, but it's good to see you. I was going to try and drop in and see you the last couple of years ago when I was up your way, but since you've closed off the whole country to the rest of us...
Don't blame me.
In reality, I'm a lot bigger than you are, mate.
I'm a short ass, right?
Oh, are you? Oh, yeah. It's a bit hard to tell. That makes Mistress look really big.
I'm happy about that. There is a formal side of this, which is why we're in touch. You're the professional, all things GRP, and that might not even be the right terminology to use, but I'm sure you've got a lot of bow, or I should say a lot of arrows in your bow with regards to expertise in all things manufacturing things with plastics. And glasses and carbon and who knows what else. But we'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to... You know, if you don't mind, actually, I've got a list. I'm going to...
Get your list out.
I'm very much a list person. I'm sure you are too.
No, that's the problem. I just go with whatever's up here. That's why Janet and I have this wall of pain behind me.
Right. With that short promo I did with the last video, I had not only comments on YouTube, but others sort of pretty much saying... Oh my God, you and Ross.
So two brothers together.
So there's definitely people that are keen to see us do somewhat of a bit of a collab here. And in fact, a couple of people said, oh, Ross is coming up and he's going to help you do it. And I have to apologise for that to people who might have been thinking that because, you know, we're not that close to each other. And
I don't think I could handle the heat up there after this week down here. It's been brutal.
It has been brutal. We actually had 39 and then 38. In fact, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, I woke up Tuesday morning early and I just said, don't even try to do anything. Just survive the day. Like it was that hot actually, which is saying something because, I mean, I'm used to the heat.
Having said that, on Monday, we unloaded 88 kayaks in 39-degree heat and 90% humidity. And Janet and I just looked at each other and went, I think we're getting too old for this.
Oh, man. what's the link with Adelaide?
I've got about 7 or 8 dealers that just sell. I'm basically the importer and distributor of Delta kayaks from Canada.
I remember seeing that on a video.
Yeah, beautifully made, lightweight, thermoformed ABS plastic kayak, and luckily I only have to ship these in and ship them on. But we've had them on the water for over 4 months, so it's been a bit of a problem, the supply chain issues for us.
With everything, right?
Everything. I mean, right down to materials, and I'm sure you're experiencing it. But they all came in at lunchtime on Monday, and seriously, I think it was about the hottest day of the year down here. By the time we finished reloading another truck going to Adelaide Canoe Works, I'll give them a little plug there because they're such a good dealer. Paul and Kath down there, they ordered around 35 of these boats from us, and back in March last year, and that's how long it's taken to get them. Wow. And here we are in February. It's almost 12 months later.
11 months, yeah.
Just a shocker, and a shocker worldwide. But anyway, we reloaded the truck at midnight that night, and it was still 30 plus degrees and still 90% humidity. And honestly, it saved me 4 days drive to Adelaide and back. It would have been just murder. But I have done 3 trips to Sydney this week with about 20 kayaks each trip to the stores in Sydney. So I've done about 40 hours of driving anyway, and I would have also had to go to Adelaide. So that's why we've postponed this a week, and it was probably good we did.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, as I said, the tech problems that I had, thinking that it was all going to be so... I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I didn't think it was going to be as tricky as it was. And
I've never actually done a live or a recorded podcast like this ever. So I think you've done really well. I don't know how you do it, Bruce, to be honest.
Ross, we're both, I was going to use a word which I probably shouldn't, so I won't, but we're all new to this. I'll substitute the other word for new. Yeah, so this is my first. I've never done anything like this before.
Well done. No, it's a great way to have, you know.
I'm looking like I've had I just noticed, I looked at myself for the first time. Does it look like I've been in, what are they called, the Ray Boots? Solarium.
Have you got makeup on? Because I look very pale.
Yeah.
It's good to finally have a chat.
It is. It's really good, and we'll get to.
You look like you've been in the makeup department. You got a team behind you.
No, I definitely don't have a team at all.
You've got no team at all, like me. You've got no team.
I won't say you have at least Janet, because I'm sure she's a massive support, and but at the same time, having Janet only is, for the project you're doing, man, God, I just take my hat off to you. I mean, your boat is just monstrous, absolutely monstrous.
Yeah, it's a monster. I equate it to 2 45-foot yachts, and that's been just it's just exhausting. I won't tell you what I did today. I had like 8 hours up there today, and much to Janet's disdain, but I was wedged up in the bow trying to fix the modification that I made to where I split the bow open. So it was a pretty brutal day up in that forepeak. It's only about as big as one of my legs, and I was in there for about 4 hours.
We could go down that rabbit warren very easily, I think, between you and I. Regards, it's what I call, Ross, paying attention to the details, or to those people who notice the details. And I actually think what you did with regards to slicing down right down both hulls to get the outboard where the decks and the hulls are going to meet, that joint, the trouble you've gone to do that, I mean, I don't need to tell you, but maybe for others listening, the effort required to go to that sort of trouble is what I think sort of separates people who notice the details and are willing to put in the effort for the details, and those who just don't really think it matters. But I mean, again, I'm talking to the converted with you, but ain't it worth it?
You did right. You did right. I mean, I'm watching you do your flooring, and My God, the work
What's
you
he
put into that
doing?
is just phenomenal. I mean, I'll be going to Bunnings and buying some waterproof flooring after watching you do that. I had intentions of doing rosewood and beach inlays, and
Right.
mate, I'd like to actually go sailing at some point.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you've done. I don't have a lot of flooring to deal with, however. The catamaran hulls of the floors are only about sort of 2 foot wide, I guess. There's only really the saloon, but your boat, mate, it looks incredible. The detail and the issues you had with the varnishes and everything, it's unbelievable. I just take my hat off to you. I mean, that sort of woodwork for me is just incredible. So well done. But yeah, it's a monster job.
It's
There's no doubt.
It's mutual in terms of the respect, I would say, because in our own ways, we're going to the effort with the details. The trouble you go to, the effort you go to for those details, I think, I have conversations, probably not every day, but probably every second day with somebody through online activity. And
Yep.
I get things like, I could have sailed wherever, or I would have been sailing for 2 years in the time you're taking bloody blah. But the difference is, I think I could say this for your boat by the time you're in the water too, is that when they do go in the water, you're not going to be going back to harbour or needing to be on the hard to attend to shoddy work that you did in a hurry because you just wanted to get in the water.
I totally agree, Bruce. I think once it's in the water, you basically got to make sure that I think most importantly the structure's right, but cosmetics come last. And the problem with the great thing about your build is we're seeing your cosmetics come together now with all that attention to detail. The problem with mine is you still look at its structure, and there's a hell of a lot of structure, and that to me is more important at the moment.
Absolutely.
Than cosmetics, because I don't want to spend time on the hard again. Although I do have, luckily, just near my home here, just down the river here, we've got a pull-out point. I've got an area that I can pull up into and work on it. It's only a kilometre from where my factory is, but I cannot take that boat back to the factory again. It has to go onto a hard stand, and I do not want to do that again.
Right.
And structurally, cosmetically, look, I think I'm going to be the one that's going to want to spend the time working on the cosmetics in the factory or in the environment I'm in now, and get it all done, because I know the hardships of just getting something to a boat with a tender, and then you get there and you haven't got the bloody screwdriver, you haven't got the drill bit, and you haven't got the you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's just painstaking. And I've got friends of mine that have got production boats that are just dealing with constant warranties all the time, and that just does my head in. I mean, I just won't accept that, and I'm trying to make it as good as I can make it, and then if I have to fix it, at least you and I know how to fix our own boats.
Yeah.
That's the benefit and the bonus.
And look, I mean, of course, we're both going to end up needing to take our boats out of the water, put them on the hard for different reasons. But, the difference is, and I'm sure, Ross, you'd agree, that how many YouTube channels do you see out there, including people who've got a 6-month new boat, whether it be catamaran or monohull? And I don't know about you, but when I watch certain channels, they might be talking about running a new plumbing line for whatever underneath the cockpit area, let's say. And mate, I'm not even interested in that. I'm looking at the
finished product,
the standard of the construction, about all the other things that are on view.
Yeah. So we had an issue where we had a catamaran about 13 kilometres off the coast of where we are here that had hit a sunfish in the water. It was very unfortunate because they bought the boat the day before and were travelling down the coast, down to its new home down on the south coast, south of us, and hit a sunfish and broke the rudder off, and the whole boat sunk. It was only they'd only purchased it the day before, and the reason why was that the rudder compartment wasn't sealed off to the rest of the hull, and it took about 15 minutes for them to be in their rib, and then the local marine rescue here had to go out and rescue them, and by the time they got out there, the boat was fully submerged and then ultimately capsized, and is currently floating somewhere out in the Tasman Sea. So that sort of thing just freaks me out.
Exactly.
Especially with the whales and containers and things that possibly, I mean, whales are probably a bigger problem than containers around here, but we have, as you know, you're on the same coast, we have about 35 to 40,000 humpbacks for about 8 to 9 months of the year cruising up and down our coast very close to shore, and that sort of thing will and can happen, and I'm hoping when and if I ever hit one, my rudder compartment holds, which is going to be sealed, by the way.
The thing,
after that.
The thing is that if you're not taking that sort of stuff seriously, I mean, and obviously, God, again, where do you start? But if you're not taking that stuff seriously, go and get some expert advice about what you might not even be thinking about, I reckon, because those basics, as you say, the construction stage and phases are literally the most important.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're dealing with constructions that, I sort of look at my boat and look at the laminates that I've put into my boat, and I know that it's probably twice as thick as the average production boat. Yeah. And I'm not saying production boats aren't built substantially enough. It's just that, you can't, a little bit of weight for me, although catamarans are supposed to be light, I'm still going to end up with a lighter boat than the original production boat that was all glass, even though it's foam.
That's really interesting.
I put that woven cloth in that's just so much more resilient and has a higher bending stiffness in the works. And I guess that's the thing with composites is we're able to add that stiffness, but certainly it's nothing like a steel boat like your boat. I mean, the reality is steel boats are the only way to stop carnage, I think, out there. You may have the rust in the long term, but hit a break wall, hit a pylon, hit a channel marker or something, and all of a sudden you're wishing you're in a steel boat. I think that's the long and the short of it.
Well, look, there's obviously several things I could say there. In fact, I was talking to somebody this morning on Messenger about that Ross, I'm a firm believer that it doesn't matter what construction material substrate you're using for a boat, the rules are the same, which is if it's not built properly and if it's not maintained, they're all going to fall apart.
Exactly.
I know, and I've sailed on steel boats that look as new, and funnily enough, one was a design exactly the same as what Mistress is, a Caribbean, that was 20 years of age, had circumnavigated 1.5 times. They were here in Mooloolaba, and I met them. It's a few years ago now. And out of interest, because I hadn't started my build, I was asking all sorts of questions. They showed me the steel hull where there hadn't been insulation or anything because the boat wasn't insulated. Looked like it did when it would have been done from original.
And that's a testimony to the owner, I guess, from a maintenance
and the
point
build,
of view,
right?
keeping on top of it, and the builder, exactly.
Yeah.
It's been thought about at the beginning, and also then maintained all the way through its life. And I watched that young couple from Brazil, that Odd Life crafting video, the channel, and it's so good to see a 23-year-old steel boat come back to life, and then they're out enjoying it again. That's the sort of thing that gives me a lot of joy. I mean, I'm building a big plastic boat. But to see something being rejuvenated and reused, and we're both living in boating areas. I mean, we have a lot of old boats here that are, probably better than a lot of the new ones, and that's exciting for me to see people rejuvenating. But no one wants to end up living alone in a boatyard. Like I've got a boatyard about 5 doors down from where I am, and there's about 60 or 70 yachts there, and they call it the Field of Broken Dreams, and for a very good reason.
And they're everywhere, aren't they?
Everywhere, yeah, exactly. I look from my lofty heights of stardom in my tent across to the Field of Broken Dreams.
Right.
I just cry for the poor guys that are in there.
And you know what? Look, I actually think you would be similar in the sense that I'm sure you've got so many stories to tell ahead, Ross, when it comes to what you know already, what you've learned along the way about not only since you started your boat, which I do look forward to the day when you give her a name, by the way. But
it's not getting a name for a while.
No, but I'm not. There's no pressure, of course. Who am I?
I've called it many things, but they're not really publishable.
They're the. You know what I say, Ross, and I think you're going to like this. And this is part of why I say I knew there were going to be banter and humorous banter at that.
Yeah.
What I say, and I haven't said this publicly yet, but I certainly will be, and maybe this will be just the first time. But I, when asked, have already primed myself for saying when people do ask me, you know, in the wide world out there, what would you say is the most important skill to have in order to build a boat? I would be saying possibly the first thing, because that's just my humorous filter. You're going to need a book so large that you've never read a book as big, full of profanities that you don't even know about yet. And without that, you're not going to get there.
Indeed, that is so true.
Do you concur, my friend?
Look, I consult. There is a thing widely available on the internet if you're really into that.
If you're needing extras,
it's called it's called Roget's Profanosaurus, and I recommend it to everyone.
I can't say I've heard of it, but
it was done by.
I reckon I might have come up with many that might be in there.
No, this is the ultimate, and I'm very adept at using them. I cannot publish them because they're just so profane. Yeah. But it was done by Viz magazine years ago in London, and it was actually an A to Z of profanity, and I love it. I've actually wet myself reading it. It is very funny. So for anyone out there in the world, my brother and I almost had my little brother Brett is about 5 years younger. He almost had a heart attack when we were taking turns reading the explanations, and I was crying, and I thought Brett was going to have a heart attack.
Well, I speak 2 other languages as well, and I have a couple from different languages, but that I could be wrong, and I don't mean to be offensive for those who are good enough to not allow profanities to pass their lips, but I don't think you can build a boat without it.
No, you can't. No. And you know, I actually have a very funny this thing, because I watch you build your boat. I want to know, did you actually build the actual hull with thongs on? Sorry, I'll say flip flops for those in the northern hemisphere. Yeah. I mean, I wear a thong every day, but to wear flip flops inside your boat, I haven't seen my toes since I was 45. So to wear thongs for me, or flip-flops, I'll say again in inverted commas, would just be possibly the biggest safety item. I definitely would not be wearing flip-flops in my hull. I'd have no toes left.
Well, I'll answer it with a couple of angles on that. The first of which is, if you saw me in the construction phase, which is where you're at, steel toe cap boots was the only thing I wore.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the only thing I wore. Another couple of things to say. My whole working life, from the moment I arrive in a country where I'm working, from the moment I leave that hotel, I have to be wearing steel toe boots. And I've done that. I've done that my whole working life. And I mean, I'm the medic. I'm the one who sits in a clinic. I don't go out onto. Well, actually, I do go out onto site, but not to work.
Sure.
And so it's just a real luxury, is probably a good word to use. That
to go barefoot.
Well, I don't go barefoot. In fact, I'm quite particular about that. I don't. The only time I don't wear anything on my feet is when I'm surfing. But
brilliant.
I'm at the phase now where I'm not using any heavy tools. And the other little rule I have, which some people might not like, and again, each to their own, but when I grew up sailing, the rule was bare feet on the boat. Keeping in mind, exactly. I born and grew up in Adelaide, which is why I was asking you earlier about Adelaide.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, 9 months of the year, it's pretty inclement weather.
Oh, absolutely.
And cold, right? And so it didn't matter, though. The oily boots, as in the the sailing wellies as such were no barrier against the cold. That was just there to sort of help prevent a bit of water slopping around your feet. But I still have that rule and that's what I do. That's why I don't wear anything on my feet when I'm down below doing the construction, because
makes sense. You don't want to damage those floors. You put enough draft into there.
And again, it was different before I painted all the hulls and hull plating. I was still toe boots, but as soon as all the finish paint went on, it became, well, you don't wear shoes down below, and also once the decks all get done, that'll be the same rule there. But
I'm struggling right now because I've got my deck sort of in place. It's not down yet. It's going to go down in about 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
But I'm still at the point where I need to wear shoes on the deck, and the dirt, and there's a scaffolding place on the other side of our factory unit that just the wind we've had is just whipping up dust, and because it's everywhere.
I remember you commented that on your last video, I think, about you're not even going to bother cleaning it up, and I understand that exactly.
It's shocking, and the problem is now I'm only walking on the anti-slip, but whenever I walk, I'm worried that I'm actually etching into the glass. I can handle it oxidizing, and because I'll just repolish it. In fact, that's going to be Janet's job. She can polish the whole deck. That'll be hers. I'll be down inside, and but she's already offered to do it. We won't
put that out a lot to everybody else.
I've offered that job to Janet. She's taken it up, but I'm not sure she knows what that entails.
Right.
That could entail a month on your knees with wet and dry sandpaper to get it back to a luster and then buff it. So fascinating to hear people like yourself building steel and people with wood, and obviously you get obviously the other channels in the States where they're just massive wooden boat builders. To hear all of these nuances that are almost identical to ours.
Oh yeah, exactly. If you're going to undertake a boat project, spend, I don't know what number you might put on it, Ross, like I'd say at least 5 years, like making sure that you're sure.
I've been wanting to do this, big project since I was about 17, but
there we go, people. There we go.
And unfortunately, you've got to be in the right space, physically, mentally, I guess financially.
Absolutely. It's not only, for example, being in the right position, having the right motivation, the finances, all those things are 100% true. But there's also your family situation. You can't, if you're, whether you're newly married or not married, but newly in a partnership long term, not to mention when you're going to be having children. I mean, of course, there are some who have children and put them on the boat and away they go. But I don't think the number would be very many, or there wouldn't be many people who've built a boat, finished it, launched it, and put their young family on there and headed off. I actually know some people who've done that, but God, there aren't many. So you've got to have that. Well, we haven't even spoken about your work either, right? So there's a lot of things that have to line up. If I can add to what you're saying there, Ross, and anybody who's building a boat the way that we are, there's a lot of people doing that beyond YouTube, of course, but for those who do have decided to put up a channel and document it, we all get the comments, aren't you finished yet? God, that's taking so long. If I was you, I would have just bought a boat, blah-de-blah. Like, you could fill in 1,000 comments along those lines. But it's actually quite frankly wonderful to hear you say what you just said, because I would argue exactly that point, that this is actually our life work.
Oh, exactly. That's precisely what it is.
We didn't decide last year, God, I reckon I'll build a boat and go sailing. No. So I've been stewing on this since I was a young teenager, younger than 17. And again, I could tell a lot of stories about that. But that's why I said before, actually, that I'm sure you've got so many stories to tell ahead. And I think a lot of them, if you're like me, Ross, they're not anywhere near ready to come out until the boat's in the water. But I'm sure.
I think that's the key to this is, as you said, you've got all these people around the world trying to make this happen. Physically, look, you've got to definitely have to be in the right space. You've got to have the passion, but you also have to have the wherewithal to put it all together. And I think when I look at someone getting slabs of sheet metal like you do and putting a boat together, and me getting drums of resin and rolls of cloth and just laboriously rolling it out. I mean, 3 years to make the hull, but the hull is, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I know what it constitutes, and that's the thing. That's the difference between when you just buy one off the shelf. I think buying one off the shelf for me, and at the moment with catamarans, 5 to 7 year waits on them, I would say that there's, with all of the manufacturers, that's not just one or two, all of them have between 5 and 7 year backlogs of orders, and that is an incredible impetus for people to start building their own. And I'll just throw it, I've got my mold for sale, so jump on if you're local. Buy the bastard.
Where's my fingers? See the card.
And I want someone else to be I guess inspired. And I had a young guy from Perth comment yesterday, and this is what really does drive me. Drives the YouTube channel. I wouldn't say it drives me building the boat, because I was always going to do that. But he said, I'm 22 and it's so good to see somebody actually doing something constructive. Now that he said, I'm inspired. And when you hear that, you think, at least I've gotten through to somebody.
Agreed 100%. And once again, to me, that's just a whole other subject alone you could dive down into and talk about, isn't it? There's so many different aspects to what we're doing, I think, and hopefully what we are doing does actually inspire people, which I know that happens with your channel, I'm sure, and it's the same as me.
It's amazing.
Me watching somebody like Leo Sampson, he's exceptionally inspiring to me, and he's not the only one, of course, but
exactly.
And again, to say, watching you and what you're doing, I feel like I can use that term, boat bro, because of the fact that
absolutely,
I identify with anybody who notices and pays attention to the details, and you clearly do, and that's why I have a lot of respect for you, because you're a fellow detailed man.
What blows me away is that you built a boat, and now you're more excited about the finish on your galley cabinets. That is what it's all about. And when you said this is what I'm talking about, that's exactly why channels.
You see, there, you notice the details.
The details are the key. I mean, anyone can slap together a boat or a bit of steel. I mean, I can weld. It looks like bird shit, but I can weld. I mean, I know the quality of welding you're doing, but the reality is I spend a lot of time just trying to get that laminate right, because I don't want to deal with it in 10 years' time. But you were talking about people telling you, aren't you finished yet, and surely you could be working harder. I don't really have a big problem with people saying that on my channel with the comments. It's that little mongrel in the mechanic shop that's opposite me that speaks to me every single day, Jaden. I mean, I'm going to give him a plug because I love him.
You're singling him out tonight.
I cannot walk past his workshop without him saying, if you did a bit more work and didn't talk so much, it'd be finished. Now, that's been 3 years I've been putting up with.
With the settings on my YouTube channel, anybody can say whatever they want.
Exactly.
I do go to the trouble of deleting things, for example, like pornography. But everybody's free to say whatever they want, and the fact that they take the time to comment, even if it's negative, I embrace it. And as I've said to some people in replies, please don't misunderstand my comments. I like to engage. If you're going to say something to me that to me might not be the way I see it, I'm going to engage with you and provide you a bit of explanation about why it is that I'm doing things the way I am. So, as I said in that last video, with your boat, you get to decide. And so therein is the point, is that if you want to make comments that you might not understand my reasons or Ross's reasons for why he's doing it that way, just understand that it's his boat, and I can promise you there are very good reasons as to why he's doing it that way. And
exactly.
Until you build your own boat, and look, the finger's pointing to me, until I started doing all of this fit out, my God, how naive was I? And you just sort of think to yourself, well, I'll just do that, and then I'll do that, and it's like, really? Okay, you'll find out. You know,
mate, I beat myself up every night. I get home and I'll hit the lounge, and then I'll start the editing, and I'm thinking, and then I got to watch myself do the work again, and that's brutal.
I think I can say safely that until whether it's build a boat or until whether it's start a YouTube channel about building a boat, you actually don't understand how much work's involved. No. I know a lot of people say that. But look, we should move on to questions.
Sure, sure. Let's move on.
We'll move on. Sorry to break that thread.
No, that's good.
We'll move
let's
on.
do it.
Well, I hope you got something out of that, everybody. Not only for the laughs, but also, I guess that gives a bit of an insight into probably the philosophies and thinking behind what both Ross and I are doing with our individual projects. Part one. And as you could tell, we didn't even get started on the questions I had for Ross regarding his expertise on all things plastics. Stay tuned for that. It will be coming up soon. I really enjoyed having that podcast with Ross. I think we covered a lot of things. So in the next installment, we'll definitely be going into that. What I'm going to do also is run a bit of a vote in a community post just to work out a few things, whether people were interested in this, whether they thought it was too long, too short, or just right, and maybe some other questions. So please look out for a notification about that vote, and please get involved and let us know what you think. Can I ask you to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and please check out my website, and of course, leave a comment because I like reading what you have to say.